Hello and welcome to my video. Today I'm going to be drawing for you a character design as well as an illustrative work containing the newly made character. For this, I really want the illustration to be magical and overall beautiful to look at, but also getting you very curious about what is going on and to ask questions as to what's happening. So as I start off with my character, I'm going to make her a witch because I love witches and I love the whole aesthetic, and there's just so much potential for design use. Granted, I can't draw the hats very well, so I focused more on the dresses and overall personality that the character would have. I found when doing this for characters, the posing and positioning of the character is incredibly important. So as you can see here, I've done one slightly shy pose where her hands are behind her back, but her hip is slightly to the side. And in this character, I've just made her very straight, but she's got her hand on her hip, so it's more of a confident pose. And she's got a little more of a revealing top. I didn't feel like this fit the character very well, and there wasn't a lot of movement. So for the second one, I decided that the wind would be blowing, because nothing makes a character feel like they're moving when they're standing still more than wind blowing their hair and clothing. So I stuck with the more timid design, but I got her to hold her hat in a way as to stop the wind from blowing it away. And tried giving her a more comfortable outfit. I had real trouble with the sleeves. I loved the dress right away, but the sleeves I just couldn't figure out. I wanted to do something puffy, but I decided to go for these long, simple sleeves, just because they seemed very comfortable. And this character, I want my characters to be comfortable in their clothes, because if you're not comfortable, then what's the point of wearing it? So I didn't want to make this character incredibly timid or meek. I wanted to give her more of a mischievous type of character, and I feel like I've done that quite well throughout her pose, as well as her eyes. I did realise that halfway through the illustration I did a mistake where, as I was drawing the boots, which I thought turned out really cute, I have the hair blowing one way and her dress blowing the other, and it just didn't look right to me. So I just had to quickly do a little copy and pasting, and I finally fixed that. And I think it worked out a lot better this way. You can see like the movement just directing in one location. And I find when it's designing a character, it's always a good thing to do. Give the still character movement throughout clothing or hair. Just try to describe just their entire personality in that one sketch. Kind of like when you see a photo of a person. I know that's not really how people should, define others' personalities, but when it comes to drawing a character you're creating, I find this works out quite well. It also grabs the attention of the audience, so if anyone here is trying to draw characters or is having a hard time, I'd really focus on drawing people in general, because you'll never get better reference than just people. The way I do this is I wear sunglasses and I just sit at like a small cafe outside or by a window and just try to draw people so they won't notice. I mainly focus more on their movements rather than anything else, and I find that's a good way to get the proportions of a person and what humans actually move like, because we are very confusing creatures to draw. The hands are evil to draw. So this is my character right now, after I've given her a bit of colour. I really like the warm tones that I've given her, and I wanted to add a little more detail to her clothing. Now, what I love when it comes to character design is clothing, specifically layering clothes on top of each other. So like she's got a light yellow top over this darker, more mustard dress. And I know most people will think it's like one dress put together, but no, it isn't. I really like layering clothes, similar to the game Dragon's Dogma, where you can like layer tons of clothes on like your armor and underneath it. And I wish more games would actually do that. I tried doing the same pattern for the bottom skirt, but I found it wasn't really the best, so I decided to do just a simple stitch pattern just to give the skirt more movement, and I thought that turned out really cute. It helped it pop out with the slightly lighter top above it. Whenever I draw eyes, I'm always really worried that I'm going to make them far too anime, and there's nothing wrong with anime eyes. However, I do enjoy combining like the Western animation style, like Western cartoons with specific anime traits. I find combining them, you can get some really good ideas and some really interesting character designs. But overall, with time, when it comes to creating characters, it just depends on style, your specific art style, and how you prefer to draw in general. Another good way to get movement throughout your character design is to just do some light shading. Lighting can sometimes help, but I find that only really works if, I find it works better in just illustrations, or if the character is wearing something incredibly shiny. Then you definitely want to reflect that, because you also want to get a good idea of the material of clothing they're wearing. So I did some simple shading on her dress and her hair, just to get a feeling that her hair is nice and soft. Her clothes are a soft material. They're not like overly shiny or made of anything too elasticy, like some clothes are. She's a very simple character that likes comfy clothes, and that's really what I like about her, because you can add so much to even such a simple design. And I feel like if you overdo your design, then I've seen some designs where they have all these incredible magical powers, but it's kind of too much. I mean, add as much to your characters as you want, but when it comes to truly trying to give your characters a place and a story, you really want to make sure that they seem relatable in a sense, so that if you ever made a story about them, the audience would be able to, relate to them in a way. Because I absolutely hate it when hate's a strong word, but it does annoy me. I definitely don't like it when there's a protagonist in any type of show, mainly anime. I found that happens, that is just so over the top, but also incredibly unrelatable, and how do I explain it? It's really hard to explain this, and I have a feeling people will get mad at me if I try to compare this to any other characters that I've seen in the shows I watch. I guess a good example of the character that I do enjoy watching would be Luffy from One Piece. He's got quite a simple design, and his power is really strange, like literally rubber. When I was a kid and I started watching One Piece, I was like, what? Why is he stretchy? It didn't make sense to me. But he's very smart when it comes to fighting and combat. But I find it's funny that he doesn't have a lot of common sense. But those are specific traits of that character, and I feel like his design resembles that quite well. Now, if you want to make your character pop on the screen when you're just doing a simple design, you want to make sure they're not standing on just white background. I like giving my characters a, like sometimes just like a pattern, but I find mostly just a simple coloured bubble is the best way to go, like here in her final finished design. And so here we will start with the illustration, and of course I start with my character right away because I'm still super pumped when it comes to drawing her. She has been one of my favourite designs as of lately. Now, when you're creating a world, so when you're creating a world for maybe a comic or a show, maybe just for fun, I definitely enjoy just drawing and creating worlds for fun. It's a good way of practicing and just giving myself work to do outside of work. Because you can't really bring your work, your personal fun ideas into the artistic workspace sometimes, especially when you have a project to do. But when you are creating a world, you want to make sure that it seems like a place your character would fit into. So, for example being, you wouldn't put a, like, I don't know, ancient golem that looks like it's from a magical fairyland into a sci-fi futuristic space adventure. That would just be very strange unless there was like a specific reason in the story and it was explained well through the characters and the storytelling. Unless it was like that, then I'd say go ahead. But if it's not, then your world won't make sense and your characters will feel out of place, and that's something you don't want to do, because the story, people don't seem to understand this as much sometimes when I have this conversation with people, and it kind of drives me insane. They forget that the world around them they are creating is just as important when it comes to design and lore as the characters that are portrayed throughout the story. When did this turn into a rant? I don't know. I'm sorry about that, but it is my opinion and from experience what I have seen. But let's get off that topic and focus more on what I'm doing here, where I'm trying to give the illustration more of a dramatic feel by using specific lighting and textures throughout the background in order to enhance the character and her and to the environment she's in. So my character has very warm colours, and I thought it would be really nice to contrast that with the dark moon. I thought that would be nice to contrast that with the dark colours of the night sky and the water, as well as the dark brown of the trees. Shading and lighting in any illustration is a big thing, and it can really bring out the atmosphere that you're wanting to achieve. I wanted to create a more mystical experience. People would wonder what's going on, what's happening, type of questions that would be going through their head. And that's why I placed the orb in her hand. I thought it would be quite interesting, as orbs, they always hold some type of magic, and considering she's a witch, I thought that would work out really well. Now, what I have in plan for this orb and this character, that's a secret, because I can continue to build on that and have as much fun with it as I please. But you have to remember that when it comes to lighting and especially shading, you need to take into consideration the environment and where the shadows would lie in that environment. What would be covering what would be the shadow? Where is the light coming from that's causing the shadow? And what is the color of the light you're using? Like here, I have drawn the globe shining light, and that is surrounding my character as well as some of the tree branches around her. However, it did stick out a bit too much, so I wanted to enhance the other layers of my illustration to try and see if I could make it more mystical and cleaner for the final outcome. And I think it worked out very nicely, but I didn't want it to take over the entire drawing. I just wanted it to bring the character's eye into the center, and then not the character's eye, well yeah, the character's eye, she's looking at the orb, but I also wanted to bring the audience's attention to the orb and the light coming from it, that then they settle on the character and then they look around the entire illustration, seeing what's going on. Messing around with layers and different effects, especially when it comes to digital art, is really helpful. And so I tried adding a bit of white light coming from the sky, although I had to get the correct balance when it comes to using two different colors of light in two different areas. Like one is coming from the sky, the other is coming from the orb. And you have to make sure that when you are creating environments like this, you don't overdo it in a sense, and you have to take into consideration that if there are a lot of what's the word for it? I can't remember. If there's a lot of space between like one part of your illustration and another. For example, I have the large tree in the center, and then I have in the background the bushes. They will have a little more light on them than the tree itself, because one, they are closer, and two, you have to think of depth and perception. just throughout all your drawings. It's good to experiment with this by just going out yourself and drawing as much as you can. I wanted to add a little more light to the orb, so I ended up using a texture on the water and giving it a light, not yellow, but a kind of reddish pink within the water, just to give it that kind of mystical glow that the water and the orb are connected. These are very small little hints that most people wouldn't really get their first time looking at a design, but I find that's what's great about drawing in general. You can add hints, and like similar to some TV shows you might have seen, like Gravity Falls, all the different hints and clues that were in the show, illustrated and, you know, voice acted, all of them combined together, you know, crack the mystery, and I like putting that into some of my work. And so here we are with the final outcome of my drawing. I'm really happy with how this one turned out, and here was the original sketch, so you can see the before and after. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I hope to see you again soon.